In a last video, I explained what is a composting or what are the benefit of a composting or how to should do the composting, or I have given some information about a method of a composting, what is an aerobic composting and anaerobic composting. So in this video, I am going to tell you how to start a composting at your home, or how to start a composting career at your individual level or at a society level. So watch this video till the end. I will give you some useful information about a composting or a waste disposal ideas. In the last video, I explained a composting. What is a composting? Composting is some bacterial action on a waste. We are adding some bacterial actions. We are giving some amount of a heat or mixing or ventilations, everything to the waste that can generate a useful compost within a less or more times it will take on, but it generates a useful compost. Now in this video, I am telling you how to start a composting at your home. So before starting a composting, you should know some basic ideas about a composting. I already given you some ideas about a composting in the last video. Now I will tell you the first step of a composting, how to follow a composting procedure or how to follow the composting techniques. So first technique is a shredding. If you haven't shredded the waste, shredding means that waste you are converting into the smaller particle to speed the composting. So that is the very important part in the composting. It is the first step of a composting. Before a shredding, a composting, you have to segregate a waste properly. It is also one important part. Segregation is very much important in the composting because only organic waste can compost. Otherwise, anything cannot be compost. You just take your waste, you segregate it properly, and after that put it into the shredder and shred it well and add into machines or add into one devices for a curing or for aeration purpose. See, for a composting, first of all you have to follow a segregation, after that you have to follow a shredding, and after that you have to follow a 4 subcategory steps. In that, the first is the heating. Heating can be done naturally. There are no need to give extra heat to the waste, but sometimes what happen, if you are giving some amount of a heat, then bacteria activate in 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. If you are not giving a heat, then the bacteria also improve their or increase their temperatures by itself, and it gives a 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, but it will take more time for a composting. Now heating is a important factor, but we are not giving you giving a heating to the particular for that section. Now in the next step is the mixing. You have to mix a waste properly, otherwise you can convert into the aerobic composting to the anaerobic composting, that it is not good for a composting. So second step is anaerobic composting, and first step is the first step is the heating, second is mixing. You have to mix the waste properly and you will get the good quality compost, otherwise it will take a more time to make a compost. Third step is aerations. There need oxygen for a bacteria, because that bacteria is a living microorganisms and that will require a more amount of oxygen to generate or to grow a bacterial action. So that's why you need to give aerations or oxygens to the bacteria. So this is the aeration process. And the fourth step is the carbon source. It is a very important factors in the composting. If you haven't added the carbon sources, then it cannot be compost, and it is not a composting easily, because there is some amount of nitrogen and carbon ratio should be there. At that times you will get a good quality compost. Then how the question arises, the how much part of a nitrogen or how much part of the carbons should be there. So it depends on your waste. There are the number of carbon sources available, like sawdust, culture powder, or cocoa peat, or you can say the dry leaves also you can add. So these are the carbon sources, and it have some amount of nitrogens also. So you can just put your waste into the shredder, shred it, and after that put into your machines, or in your yard you have made some devices for the composting. You can add into that, and after that you just mix it properly by adding a carbon source. Carbon source is a main key of a composting. Carbon source, we can say the carbon source is it also help to increase a temperature, and it also helps to uh, grow a bacterial actions. It is a very important factors. If you haven't added the carbon source, then you cannot make a compost easily. So these are the 4 steps of a composting. So you have to need, you have that information is enough for you. Now next step is how to start a composting at your home. If suppose you have a one devices, if you don't have any devices, or if you don't have any stuff for a composting, then buy a composting drums from the market. Composting drums, or we can say the water drums in the market. Otherwise you can purchase a basket or a bucket for a composting. It will also get a compost. But the first thing is a shredder. Shredder is a very costly. Otherwise you can have an option to cut into the small piece by manually, and after that add your waste into the compost, add into the devices whatever you have taken. But just I just give you an informations. So if you don't have money to buy a shredder, and you have to do the composting at your home level, then just you do one thing. You take your waste, organic, it should be the organic waste, it should be a proper segregation should be there, and you just segregate the waste properly, and you just cut into the small pieces by chopping, or you can shred by any devices you can use, but it shred into the 3 to 4 sizes, and after that you can just put into that bucket which you have purchased from the market. It will get you the 100 rupees or the 150 rupees, and you need some sawdust. You can purchase some sawdust from the market, and you just add some sawdust after adding your waste into the bucket, and you just add some sawdust. After that, one thing is very important to know. You have just to put some holes for the aerations for that bucket. If you are not giving proper aerations, then the process will be an anaerobic, and it will not create a useful compost within a less time. Then it will take a more time, and it smells badly, and it will affect, and it will not compost easily. So follow the procedure to make a compost. You just hole small holes, at least 10 to 20 holes to that buckets for a proper aerations. Make sure you don't put a big holes for that bucket, because if you put a big holes, then flying or some insect can enter into that buckets, and it will affect to your composting process. Next thing is that if you it is mixing is very important. You can buy some cultivators for a mix of that waste. Otherwise you can just rotate that buckets or that basket which we have purchased from the market, that you can rotate, but there should be the mixing procedure should be followed, or that is very important factor, because the mixing and aerations, if you have done properly, then you will get a good quality compost. So after that you adding some carbon source. Carbon source is also very important. You just carbon source. How much carbon source you have to add? It is also I will tell you. See, carbon source capacity. Carbon source means sawdust or culture powders. Whatever your waste, how much your waste, of that 10% of a waste you can add a sawdust, and 1% of a waste you can add a culture powders. What is a culture powder? Culture powder is a bacterial powders that converts the compost easily and avoid a smells. It speeds the composting. That is one thing. You will get a culture powder from the markets. You can search on the Amazon, Flipkart, you will get it. And if you want to know about a sawdust, you will get the sawdust in the local markets where the wooden work is there. So you will get the sawdust is there. Otherwise, where is the coconut husk machines are there, so you will get coco pit also. You can use the coco pit also, but the ratio of a coco pit or a sawdust is a 10% of your daily waste you have to use. Next thing is that after that procedure, so you will get a compost within 1 month. Just keep your buckets. You don't buy a one bucket or single buckets, you just buy a two buckets, because after filling a first bucket you can use the second bucket. Still the first bucket you will get a compost. Otherwise you can buy a basket also, no issue, but you have to buy a two, not a single piece. If you are buying a single piece, then it is very difficult for the next 15 days. You have to wait for a month, or you have to wait for a 2 month also. So if you just buy two buckets or two devices, whatever it may be, you just make a compost. So I hope you like this video. Please subscribe this video. I will give you that type of the informations to you, and I will give you some useful information about the waste disposal ideas and many more things I would like to tell you. Then what are the required for composting? I already explained what are the required for a composting, and what is the benefit of a composting in the last video. I'll explain. And just watch this video if you haven't seen this video. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and share this video if you like this. Thank you so much.